Good morning.
Good morning.
How you doing, Betty?
Doing okay.
Good. Glad to hear that. Anything of interest happening in life?
Um, Not anything that interesting. That's good.
Yeah. Um, you live pretty close to the center, don't you?
No, I'm about 30 minutes away. I live downtown or close to Piedmont Hospital, the main hospital on Peachtree.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. All right. Some reason I thought you were up in like Sandy Springs for some reason.
No,
Okay.
my taxes would be a lot less if I were up there.
I don't know. Talk to Phyllis Hadley about that. I don't. I mean, a lot of those folks are getting hammered. I think everybody in the city is really getting hammered right now.
Yeah,
Tax wise, unless you live like on the south or the west side.
right,
Yeah,
right.
I think they keep them pretty low over there. Um, yeah, yeah. Who would have thought a year and a half ago that we would be sitting here still kind of doing the same thing today? So
Nobody.
yeah.
That's amazing.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah,
I mean, life has certainly shifted in some, I guess, unpredictable ways that, nobody could have foreseen, but I don't know. You know, I try to look at both sides of it. I kind of see the positive of it, but there's a lot of negative about it too.
yeah.
It's hard to believe, but I actually, in a way, I kind of miss seeing people.
Oh, I definitely miss it. It's just not the same. I mean, it's wonderful that we've been able to keep in touch and have activities going, but it is just not the same as being with people.
It isn't. It really isn't. And I guess the scary part for me is that this isn't going to go away. Not
Mhm.
if we keep doing the same thing.
Right.
I mean, until the world really gets behind um, creating vaccines and getting them out to a vast majority of the people in the world, regardless of where they're at. This is just gonna keep coming, because even if we got everybody vaccinated in this country, you have countries who haven't even started vaccinating people yet. They haven't had anything available to them, and that's where variants begin to kind of spawn. And of course, people don't just stay in one place, they travel. They have contact with other people, so it just kind of gets around to everybody. So I don't know. I don't really know what's going to happen long term. I was watching something online, and it was some of the health officials, and they were kind of talking and in not too optimistic terms about the fact that because of the way this is being handled, what's going to happen is it's going to become like the flu, and it's just going to become a seasonal thing.
Right.
And it's like every year, or we're going to, or even maybe a couple of times a year, we're going to deal with another variant of this.
I don't think there's any doubt about that. I mean, it's a virus just like the flu, and I think we're not going to eradicate it. I think it's going to be around. We're going to have to get vaccines, and now we've got to be concerned. Those of us that are vaccinated in February got to be concerned about getting a booster now, whether we need to do that or not.
Yeah, I've heard various things about that. I've heard some people are saying that if you got the Pfizer vaccine, that, you know, pretty much so your immunity is pretty much so gone, you know,
Yeah.
and that you need to have a booster. Other people are, you know, other officials are saying, no, that's not true, you know, that you still have those antibodies and, you know, you should be fine. And they're questioning the validity of having a booster. So I don't know. You know, there's people all over, you know, all over the place. I think, you know, whatever answer you want to find, there's somebody out there with that opinion. So
No doubt. No doubt about it.
yeah, it's hard.
And science, quote unquote, is what people want it to be.
Well, yeah, you know, but even people in the scientific community can't, you know, and the medical community can't come down to a consensus in one or the other. And, you know, one will cite the study in Israel, another will cite the study in the UK and Germany and other places. And it's just like, okay. So, wow, it's crazy. Anyway, you know, it's, yeah, where we go from here, I don't know. No, I was kind of hoping that, you know, at some point that things would calm down to the point where, you know, you could get out and really travel in the world, you know, go places, you know, see things, you know, try, you know, go to some new places. But as it is now, you know, it's not quite so appealing. So I don't know. Anyway, looks like we got a few people here. How's everybody doing this morning?
Doing good.
Good.
Okay. Who we got here? See, we got 8 of us. Wow. Okay. So Armando's here. All right. John, Veronica.
Yep.
Oh, Ginny, you made it. How you doing? Yay. Naomi is here.
Hi.
Yeah, Bernice and Betty. And
What about Veronica?
Armando, I'm here.
Oh, hi.
yeah,
Hi,
Veronica.
Veronica.
Good morning.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, happy Wednesday. You know, glad to see all of you here. Is everybody doing okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
So far, so good.
For our
It's
Wednesday.
gonna have raining every day.
What is that?
We're gonna have raining every day.
Are you being gloom and doom?
I mean, come on, Armando, it's Georgia for what?
And it is the end of the summer, you know, quote unquote. We're almost into autumn, not quite, but you know, yeah. But yeah, it's supposed to rain here every day. You know, like we're you know we've kind of been out of our cycle of the usual afternoon thunderstorm. You know, so
And where you are moving, it's gonna be raining a lot too there. In Alabama.
yeah, it's the same thing as Georgia. I mean, Armando, I'm moving, you know, when I do move, I'm moving 6 inches across the state line. I mean, come on, you know, I might as well be in Georgia.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, literally almost like 6 inches. It's crazy. Yeah.
On I-20 or 85?
85.
No, 85 south, okay.
Yeah, yeah. Valley is off of 85. Yeah. You know, as you're heading to Montgomery, yeah, you don't make it. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, literally, you cross the river, it's the very first exit. It's like right there. Anyway, all right. So today, what are we going to talk about today? Okay, we're going to talk about.
Let's see.
We're not going to talk about, you know, your dinner date yesterday or anything. We did that yesterday. No, we're going to talk about a couple of different artists. And we're gonna
I have a good story on
yeah, I'm gonna share with you a couple of different artists and a couple of videos. And I think I'm gonna start off. We're gonna do an opaque medium today, and we're gonna do a transparent medium. All right, because I know some people do watercolor. So I think we're going to start off with the opaque. And it's a video, and it's the question of, you know, whether or not to create an underpainting. All right.
Underpainting. What is underpainting?
Well, I'm glad you asked. Okay, because she's going to explain it to you. But I'm briefly what it is. It's part of the what we call traditional process of painting. Okay, way back in the Renaissance, all right, when Leonardo da Vinci painted the Mona Lisa and other works, and not just him, all of the artists at the time, they would do what they would call an underpainting, right? Another name for it is a grisaille, if you're in Northern and Western Europe, and or a verdaccio, if you are in Italy, Spain, you know, basically the Mediterranean areas, right? And what it is, it's a monotone painting, complete in range of value, that adds, you know, basically acts as a substrate or a structure for you to add color over. And in most cases during the Renaissance, they were using transparent or translucent colors to build up layer after layer over that underpainting. And it gave it a very luminous quality, you know, to the work. That's why I like a lot of those old Renaissance paintings. It looks like there's almost light coming out of them, you know, because in fact, that's kind of what's happening, because the light's penetrating the glazes and then refracting back out or reflecting back out. And so it gives this very luminous quality to the work. Vermeer was kind of the same thing. You know, it didn't use a lot of opaque paint mixtures. But anyway, we're going to watch this video, and she's going to talk about underpainting, and she kind of uses it rather than a traditional context. She's using it more as a contemporary sort of process. So she's not really doing what we would call a traditional underpainting, which is a full range of value, but she's getting some basic values and a composition set before she goes into color. Okay, so just take a look at this. Tell me what you think, and we'll talk about it more. Let's see, there she is. Everybody see lovely lady with glasses in the middle.
Yeah, with the mouth open.
Yeah, she's talking. All right, but we'll start her back at the very beginning.
Underpaint or not to underpaint? That is the question. Hi, I'm Marion Dutton, and in this video I'm going to do a full tutorial on how to do an underpainting. And in the second half of this video we're going to actually add the colour glazes to that underpainting and compare an underpainted study against one that's been painted in alla prima. Staring at a bright white blank canvas can be very, very daunting, and if this is you, then underpainting just might be the answer. But why do an underpainting? Well, this is one of the most common questions I get asked all the time. And I could go on and on about how fabulous it is and what great results you get and how the old masters use this technique. But there's nothing quite like seeing it for yourself. This is a technique widely used by the old masters as a way to plan and develop composition and establish tonal values. An underpainting can be very simple, but yet have a major impact on the rest of the painting. But this isn't the only reason I prefer to do an underpainting. It is my belief that doing an underpainting makes it easier to paint, in particular for beginners. In my classes, I have been witness to incredible results using this technique. With the demonstration coming up next, I really do hope you can see for yourself the benefits of underpainting and how you can achieve such richness and depth in your paintings. So without further ado, let's jump onto that tutorial. Okay, so I have my tracing all set, and already, of course, something simple as a pear like this, you could freehand it. But if you were doing something a little more complex, then the procedure is exactly the same. You would transfer your image onto your canvas, and then you would spray it very, very lightly with a pencil fixative. This is actually charcoal that I've put on here, but I've sprayed it with a fixative. I actually use a very fine mist hairspray, which does the job as well. It is only very thin spray that I put on there. So I'm going to begin by creating an underpainting. Now, what I have here is a container of lean medium. You do need a lean medium to follow the fat over lean rule, which basically means that in the early stages of a painting, you have more of the thinness and less fat, less oil in the mixture. I'm using Zestic lean medium, which I've put in this small container here. But any medium that is fast drying will work in these early stages, and some people even use thinners and turpentine. I try to avoid those products, but this lean medium seems to work very, very well for what I need. But something like liquid would also work. What I'm going to do now is use an old warm brush. I'm going to get a little bit of this medium to one side, and then I'll take some of that paint. I usually come to the side of that, and I'll work together until I get a consistency, kind of a creamy consistency. I will wipe off a little bit of that excess medium, and you can either apply that mixture straight to the canvas using an old warm brush, or you can use a sponge to apply the medium. Now, I never clean these. I simply will keep on using it and using it until it's to the point where it's not usable, and then I'll discard it. They are very, very cheap. So I will go in with the sponge into the medium, into the mixture, and this works ideally if you've got a large area to cover. And we can apply a very thin coat, nice transparent layer over the entire canvas.
Things will happen to you, things that you cannot control.
Love YouTube.
Notice it's going on nice and transparently, and it's also going on nice and thin. Again, very important that you've fixed your drawing at this point. Once I've got a covering on the canvas, I like to turn the sponge to a clean area and just wipe down some of that excess. Or you could even use a paper towel just to lightly wipe off that excess medium and paint. So what we've actually done here is got rid of that white of the canvas, and we've got that lovely mid-tone on there so that we're able to erase back to the white of the canvas, or we can add some more darks on there, and we can build the entire image up just from this one basic tone. Now, just to talk about the erasing, I will use a variety of different tools to erase. We will use Q-tips, we'll use paper towels, we will use a typist eraser. These are the ones with the little brush on the end, and we've got a lovely pointed eraser. These are ideal for very fine details, such as the details in an eye. We'll use normal erasers, and we can even use brushes, clean brushes for sharp lines, and we can use old warm brushes. Just basically any tool will do that will allow you to rub back to the white of the canvas. So here is our reference photo. Now that we have medium on the canvas, we don't need to add any more, at least not at the early stages. So we're going to be working just with the dry, burnt umber. Now I'm going to start by doing some erasing. I'm going to use a paper towel. And what I'm simply going to do is look at the reference photo and I decide whether the object is lighter or darker than the background. In this particular case, the object is darker than the background. The background is lighter. So I'm going to go in and erase around this pair by rubbing out. The more you rub, the lighter the area will go. You can also use some erasers to just rub that background out. Now, who would have ever thought you could erase oil paints? I'm avoiding this lovely shadow here. I'm now going to go into a small flat brush into the paint. Take off that excess. You're always controlling the amount of paint that you're going to be applying, and you build up your tones nice and slowly. Now this is very, very repetitive, so I'm going to speed the footage up slightly so that you can see everything that I'm doing, but it's not going to be too tedious for you to watch me paint this whole thing. You'll see me constantly either adding paint on or removing paint until I've got a finished picture. As you can see now, I'm using a Q-tip to erase back. And I'm also using a paper towel. It all depends on the effect that you're trying to achieve. If you want something softer, the paper towel works wonderful.
Yeah.
Here I'm back to the typist eraser, and I'm also using a sanding block to clean off that eraser. I'll also use different size brushes as well, depending on the area I'm working on. Here I'm using a very fine detail brush. And I will regularly use a mop to soften and keep everything nice and soft. As we get further on in the project, I start to add more and more finer details. Really start to build this up so it looks like a finished painting, but only in one colour. One other little tip I can give you at this point, if you want to really get back down to the white of the canvas, you can actually switch to some medium. I'm going to dip in with a Q-tip into the medium, take off that excess wet from the Q-tip, and then we can really get some bright highlights by rubbing right back to the canvas. I tend to save this right for the very end so that you don't get any excess wet onto your canvas. Make sure whenever you've got a shadow, you've got a nice soft edge, you can use your finger or you can use a nice dome blender just to soften that outer edge and make sure it stays lovely and soft. All shadows are nice and soft. Now, make sure your underpainting is completely dry before you move on to the colour glazes. Okay, so our underpainting is nice and dry now, and we're going to start blocking in our colours. What I'm going to do is work side by side, and the colours I use on here, I'm going to transfer over to here, so you can really start to see the benefits of an underpainting for yourself. Now, I'd like to take a moment to pause here and remind you, if you are getting value from this lesson, don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. YouTube algorithm rewards channels that have high engagement, so don't forget to add your comments as well down below. It's always appreciated. The medium I'm going to be using today is Zestic clear painting medium, and basically that means it's a fat medium. It's fatter than the lean medium we use for the underpainting. So this is following the fat over lean rule. Now again, you could use linseed oil, walnut oil, or something along those lines. That would also work. So the first thing I want to do is actually oil out. And basically that simply means I'm going to put a very thin coat of oil over the entire painting so that I can work into this wet layer. Now this makes it a lot easier than actually just adding the oil to your paint as you go, because you know that you've got that thin layer of oil on there and you don't really have to worry about it. So I'm going to go in using a nice large flat brush. I'm going to go into the oil, just take off that excess, and we're going to put a very thin layer over our entire canvas. If you are working much larger than I am, you might just want to oil out certain areas and work that way. But because I'm working quite small, I'm going to put a layer of very, very thin medium over the entire canvas. Now, because we're demonstrating, I'm actually going to do exactly the same over on this side as well. Now, if I was painting this alla prima, which basically means in one sitting, as opposed to doing it in the layers that we're going to do in the underpainting, I would approach this differently. I probably wouldn't start with a white canvas. I'd maybe tone it and then add the layers thicker that way. What I'm trying to demonstrate in this video is actually how easy the underpainting method really does make this painting process. Once I've applied that medium, I will take a paper towel and I will very lightly just wipe away that excess. Now we don't have to worry about medium when we start mixing those colours. Our pear is very much a yellow-green, so I'm actually going to start with the dominant colour, which to me is the yellow. I'm going to start with some yellow ochre, which is a much more earthy yellow than we've got with this cadmium yellow. And to that, I'm going to add a little sap green. I'm looking to just get a basic tone for this pear, like a middle ground, if you like. Now, straight out of the tube, these two colours are very vibrant, and I want to just tone that down and make it a little more natural. And you really want to use a red because it is a complement to the green. I'm going to actually use some burnt sienna, which is a very reddish brown. Very small amount at a time. And I will add that into that mixture until I've got something that I'm happy with as a middle tone, as a base colour for this pear. Now I will actually take the knife over to my image and I will hold it against the image and squint and see if that looks about right. And that actually works for me, this nice middle ground. What I want to do now is actually create a string of colour. To one side, I'm going to warm it and lighten it. And I'm going to add some cadmium yellow to one side. Create this lovely string of colour. And then I'm also going to lighten that, a little bit of white. So I've got a nice string there of mid-tones going to a lighter colour. This is going to give me something to work when I'm starting to apply the colours. Now to the other side, we want to darken it, and we also want to cool it slightly. So I'm going to add a little more of the sap green and a little more blue. And we will get a darker tone and a cooler tone. Now again, this looks very, very vibrant. So I do want to tone that down. So I'm going to pick up a little more of the burnt sienna and tone that colour down a little bit, make it look a little more natural. So let's begin blocking in the pear. I'm switching to a smaller flat brush now, and I'm going to go straight into this middle tone. Because we've got that medium on there, we can just very lightly brush this colour onto the canvas. And it's going on nice and smooth. I'm focusing where I can see those middle tones. The idea this is going to go on is quite thinly. The aim is not to cover everything that you've already done. As we get further on into the painting, you will start putting more and more opaque layers on, but you really do reserve those thicker highlights for towards the end of the painting. And as I do one colour, I'm going to repeat the same colour, this middle tone, over on the other demonstration. So all of the hard work is really done in these early stages. The paint is still going on very, very thinly. And that's so that I'm able to start adding more and more layers, thicker layers, as the painting develops. So once I've got that colour on, I'm going to go and wipe the brush and now go in to my lighter tones. And I'm going to jump between these lighter string of colour.
On this episode of Bank of America's Masterpiece Moment, join Yana Siren, Peggy Pierce Elvin, director of the Albright Knox Art Gallery in Buffalo, for an exploration of Mexican artist Frida Kahlo's painting, Self-Portrait with Monkey.
Thin enough that your underpainting can still peek through. We'll repeat over on the other side. And now I'm going to move into the shadowed side. This is blocking in. We're not worrying about detail at this stage. We're just getting the local colour that we can see. We will be coming back with reflective light and our lighter lights and reflective lights, but all that's done in the details once you've done your blocking in. Focus on those initial three colours, your mid-tone, a shadow and a highlight. And then you can worry about all your finer details once that's done. As we do one, I'll repeat over and do the other side. I'm using exactly the same colours. In my pet portrait course and my portrait course, I cover doing this technique using an apple study and really do encourage students to have a go for themselves doing this study so they can really feel and see the benefits of this underpainting. I'm using that underpainting as a map of positioning my colours. The colours are going on lovely and thin so that you can actually see that underpainting underneath. You can use a mop to soften and keep all your colours nice and smooth. You can use a dome blender, particularly on this one where some of the canvas colour is peeking through. I can use that blender to help smooth. Okay, I'm going to work on the background in the same way, and then I'll slow everything down when we come to do a little bit more detail. So I'm going to speed the footage up now for you because it is very repetitive. Whatever I do here, I'm going to repeat over on the other side. Now I'm going to go into a little alizarin crimson and some burnt sienna. We're starting to add a little detail now. I'm going to warm that slightly with some cadmium orange. I'm using a flat application, so just brush on a little of this colour. I'm really just skimming over the surface, just tinting all the colours that are underneath. Into our yellow green now. So as I'm coming further and further into the project completion, I'm lightening that colour, adding more white to that mixture. And of course, the more white you add on, the more opaque it becomes. But we are saving that for the brighter highlights. Now we want some reflective light. And for that, I'm going to take some blue, come to the side, and bring in some white. This gives us a lovely, cool, reflective light. I'm going to add a little more white to that and a little more blue. As I'm coming to the end of the painting now, I'm really starting to scoop up some of my highlights so that I can apply them a little thicker. Starting to really add some darker darks now, adding more black to this mixture. Now we're just going into just white, nice and thick for those final highlights. And here is the finished painting. And in my opinion, you can read.
Okay, before we hear her opinion, all right, what are your thoughts about this?
It does give it more depth. You know, the pear looks like it has more of a form. It has less of a flattened look.
Right. Yeah, it's more dimensional, right? And that's the advantage of doing an underpaint, is that you can really, what it does is it breaks the painting down into some, fairly simple, straightforward steps. And, that you're addressing different issues at different times. And so by doing an underpainting, which is a very traditional process, you can really build in that three-dimensional feel into the underpainting. And then as you use color over it, then that just enhances it. As long as you remain transparent or translucent with your color, okay? If you get real opaque with it, you're going to lose your underpaint. So you don't want to do that. And so you really want to limit the use of white in your mixtures if you're doing an underpaint. Now, that being said, she could have achieved a very similar effect with the alla prima, but she would have had to have worked more in building up her shadows and things and deepening them than she did. Okay, and if you or I or anybody was doing an alla prima painting, we probably wouldn't approach it quite the way she did. Now she's doing, the reason she did what she did was so that she could clearly demonstrate the fact that the color that she was using was really all transparent. She wasn't building any opaques until the very, very end. And so without that underpainting, that underpinning, you lose some of the range of value on the pair that's over to the right. So is it a fair comparison? Well, yeah, kind of, for her demonstration purposes, it is, and it shows you that the color is transparent. Could you have made a choice if you were painting that alla prima and push those values so that you got more dimension out of it, yeah, you could, and you probably would have, because you would have seen that, okay, yeah, I need to push my range of value, to get it to feel rounded. So you could get there either way, but there's the advantage of the underpainting is not necessarily the time, but the fact that you've already solved half of the problem, which is composition and value and getting that dimensional feel to your objects before you start adding color. So it's a choice. Anyway, anybody got anything to say about that?
Yeah, she also did say, though, if she was starting out as a alla prima painting, she would have done a layer of some kind of color or something over the entire canvas. So that would have affected it a little bit, would it not?
It would. And what it would have done, though, it would have forced her, as she put in those midtones and lighter values, to make them more opaque, so that it would cover over that tone that was underneath, and build it up and create the light side. So she would have had to compensate for that. But, we've talked about putting a tone on a canvas before, and it's, I definitely think that's the right way to go. It will solve a lot of issues with you, because immediately when you start putting color on there, you can start to begin to see a value range, and it's not so light that everything you put on it looks dark. And that's the problem with working on a white canvas. Even if you put straight yellow right out of the tube on a white canvas, it looks dark in comparison to that white. So it throws off your perception of your values. And that's really the advantage of using, a toned canvas, right? Anybody got any questions about any of that?
Well, my problem is look at her paint this pear. Even with the base color, I would have been trying to get that first green, that's in the reference picture, where she looks like she's not really concerned so much about that color on the reference picture, but she's concerned more with a pear color.
Mm-hmm. What color are you talking about? The shadow, or?
No, the pear is actually much lighter than hers.
Mm-hmm.
And it has some brown specks on it. I would have been trying to get that light color, mm-hmm, and then put that brown specks on,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, she probably overstated, the value a little bit from the original, but okay. It's a painting. It's an interpretation.
I know. I guess my real question is, if I'm looking at a picture, how can I interpret it without trying to paint exactly what I see?
Well, more than likely, all right, you're not going to get an exact duplication of that photograph, and nor should you want to try to do that anyway. The point is, if you're using that as a reference, use it for the shape, use it for the composition, use it for maybe the range of contrast and value. But you can use color, pretty freely, as long as you keep in mind the two aspects of either temperature and value. Okay. And so you could actually make that pear a lot more colorful and a lot more interesting to look at in the painting than it is in real life. Does that kind of make sense to you?
Yes, thank you so much.
I think that's the pitfall a lot of times, that you look at the reference and you want to make it exact instead of your interpretation of the reference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and that's why, and we've talked about this a lot, and we'll continue to talk about it probably forever. Photographic reference has its place and it has its use. The problem though, in most people learning how to paint is that they become too dependent on it and that they want to copy it exactly. And that's, well, that's a problem in a couple of different ways. Okay. One is that that camera, even if it's the very, very best top-end camera out there, you know, that you can buy, let's say it's 60 megapixels or more, it doesn't see color and contrast and value the way your eye does. Your eye sees literally millions and millions of more subtleties in color than that camera will ever be able to see. And so, you know, just the human eye by itself is a much better tool than a camera. The other thing is your eye, along with your brain, it's used to looking at things in a three-dimensional way and interpreting form. Cameras don't do that. Cameras flatten everything out. It doesn't matter what it is.
I've heard it say a camera only has one eye.
Mm-hmm.
That is the limitation of a camera.
Yeah, it has one eye and no brain.
Right.
Yeah. It has one eye, no brain, and it deals with the degree of sensitivity to those photoreceptors that are, you know, wired into it. You have in your eye, you literally have millions and millions of photoreceptors that are sensitive, and each one is sensitive to different ranges of color and temperature. And we can get into this gender discussion as far as how men see color differently than women, but we do. Because again, the photoreceptors in a male eye we have much more receptors for warmer colors, reds, oranges, things like that, where women have more receptors for blues, greens, violets. And so we see color differently, you know, based on our gender. You know, that's just a biological fact. And that's something that's evolved over millions and millions of years. So, you know, Eloise, I'm not going to argue with you about a color when you think you see more blue in it, or that you think it's, you know, green instead of blue. I'm going to have to kind of defer to you, because you actually, you know, you probably see it more that way. I don't.
Right.
You know, because I don't have those receptors. So we're just seeing it differently. You know, and it's our perception. So, you know, same thing with, you know, reds and oranges and stuff. I probably see a much broader range of those colors than you do. And, you know, so it's all depending on what we're sensitive to. But in this particular case, I mean, I think this was a good demonstration of the process. You know, my caution would be to, you know, people like, you know, Bernice and really all the rest of you, is you got to kind of change your mind around this idea of using photo reference. And it's not that you can't use it, it's how you use it and how you perceive it. If you're just trying to copy it, you know, faithfully, I recommend you don't do that. You know, what I recommend is that you use it for composition, for general range of value. As far as color goes, each of you need to learn that color is really irrelevant. It's all about the value. You could paint that pear in turquoise or red or purple or any other color you want to, and you would still read it as a pear if you got the values right. Okay. So color really can be anything, right? And so you could, you know, that in a way that frees you up to play with color and to push things. Again, it all goes back to, though, you have to rely on value and temperature, right? So if you're painting that pear, and let's say that you don't want to paint it in green, let's say you wanted to paint it in red or something like that, even though you're painting it in red, one side has to be a warmer red, the other side has to be a cooler red, okay? You have to have that full range of value, right? From pretty much so like a number 1, even a 0, I guess, if you want to call it that, to, she doesn't really have like a number 10 value on there. There's nothing on there that's really black, but it's probably about an 8 or a 9. And so you have to have that, you know, that same value range, you know, to really turn that form and make it work, regardless of the color that you use. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yes.
Okay, good.
I thought this was a really cool technique, and I can't believe how much depth that added to the paint.
Yeah, it's a valuable tool. And, you know, the thing is, as I said, you know, there's advantages. And I think particularly for people just beginning to paint, to use Underpaint.
Yeah.
It solves so many problems, you know, up front, because you're not having to deal with color and temperature and value and everything all at once. You're just dealing with the composition and your value range at first.
When I use an underpainting, I think my portraits look more realistic than when I don't.
Yeah, I would. Whoever's got the talking in the background going on, can you mute yourself, please? Who's never on the phone, mute yourself.
See the depth and structure in the underpainted version. Whilst it is extra work to add an underpainting, in the long run it is easier because we've broken down each stage, allowing you to firstly think of tone and then of colour. Now you might think that this is a whole lot of work, but I think the underpainted version has more strength and structure, and it is a much more powerful painting. You might disagree. Let me know in the comments below. I really do hope you've enjoyed this tutorial as much as I've enjoyed painting it for you. Remember to add your comments down below and let me know which version you prefer. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and I look forward to seeing you again in the next video.
Okay.
Charles, is this also a reason why some artists prefer to use a linen canvas and oil painting, because there's somewhat of a value than, you know, the cotton canvas?
Yeah. Well, you can get linen who's been primed out in white.
Okay.
As well as the natural color. Now, in my particular case, I like to use that raw linen because it comes already, you know, as a mid-tone, and you don't have to add anything to it. Now, that being said, you also have to be willing to spend the money to do that because linen.
Right. There's a big difference.
Yeah, you know, well, you know, usually when I use linen, I'll either make a panel or a canvas myself and have, you know, buy the raw linen and just stretch it or put it over something. But if I'm going to buy a linen canvas, I've done that. You know, I usually wait until it's like the 70% sales, and then I'll buy stuff like that. The other thing is, though, you can find a lot of linen panels, okay? And the panel is different than a canvas. It's basically a piece of cardboard. Not always, you know, but generally it's a cardboard. But the cardboard ones are really pretty inexpensive. I mean, you can get like about a 16 by 20 linen panel for probably about, you know, $6 to $10. Okay. Where if you bought
Okay.
that same linen canvas, that same size, you know, that's been stretched, it's probably going to be close to 20.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and when I do a lot of plein air painting and I'm going out, you know, in the field and stuff, I usually work on like about a 9x12 because that's the size that fits my plein air box. That or smaller. And most of those are like, you know, $2 a piece.
Right.
Yeah, and that's for a linen panel. So they're not really all that cost prohibitive if you want to work on that material. And the thing is, with linen, it has a very different feel to it than painting on a cotton canvas. You know, cotton canvases are kind of slick. You
Right.
know, the brush kind of slides around on them a lot. The linen is very toothy, and it really takes the paint really nicely. And that's why a lot of artists really like linen, you know,
Okay.
and kind of prefer it over, you know, working on cotton canvases. Okay. So it's, you know, it's all based on what you like. But, you know, as an alternative to that, you can work on a wood panel. You know, a lot of artists work on masonite. A lot of work, you know, will work on like maple, like, you know, cabinet grade maple. And you could buy a big, like 8x10 sheet of like cabinet grade maple at like, you know, Home Depot or Lowe's for probably about 50 or 60 bucks. But then you can have it cut down, you know, into whatever size panels you want. And, you know, out of a 4x8 sheet, you can get a lot, you know, a lot of panels out of that. So,
Right.
you know, there's lots of alternatives. You know, you just have to kind of find the right surface for you, you know, and
Okay.
experiment. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions out there? Anybody got anything? Okay. Anybody got anything to say about that video before we go away?
It was a good video. I mean, it was good reference to go back to as well.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I mean, she had good information, and you know, she presented it well, and the Irish accent didn't hurt. You know, it was kind of you know, it was interesting to listen to. It had some flavor to it. You know, I like that. Okay, so let's see. Where do I want to go from here? I want to share with you an artist. Now, I'm going to play a video of his work. Okay. And then we're going to actually go through and we're going to look at a kind of a group of images that I've collected on him. We're going to talk about his work. His name is, what is it? Herman Javier Munoz. And I think, I'm trying to remember, I think he's either in Portugal or he's in Spain. Young man, very young man. You know, good painter, you know, good technical painter. Does beautiful figures, you know, and you'll see the work and stuff. His work is a little bit on what we would call the surrealist side, okay? And so I'm going to share that with you. We're going to take a look at it, and we're going to talk about it, okay? If I can just find my cursor. There we go. All right, there we go. So let's see, get that up there. Come on, move for me. Now the video is a little kind of convoluted, you know, but just enjoy the work. That's all just the intro, okay? We haven't gotten there yet. Okay. Any thoughts about that?
I think the first objective was they wanted to create an artsy film.
Yeah. 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 You know, I mean, I like that they went back to the images repeatedly, so you got to see different aspects of them. But it would have been nice without all the special effects. You know, I mean, the music was fine, you know, but I would have just liked to have been able to look at the work.
And that's what I said. I'd like to have seen the entire work instead of all the little wholesome aspects of it, and all the faces and all the hands and all the feet and in succession, rather than seeing the entire painting. I liked his work. I think it was great.
Yeah. So guess what's going to happen? You're actually going to be able to see the work without it moving, because I'm going to show it to you.
Well, hopefully I won't miss too much of it. I have a video digest appointment coming up sometime within the next hour, whenever they call me.
Oh, okay. Well, you know, I mean, it's only going to take about another 10 or 15 minutes to do. Yeah.
If you go in Google, you can see a lot of his work.
Oh, yeah.
He's a very young man. He's just 38, 37.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I was saying. Yeah, he's not an old, you know, curmudgeon guy like, you know, me or you guys.
No, he's not an old crook like us. So.
No, but yeah, you know, and he's got, you know, he's obviously, you know, got a lot of talent. He's worked very hard. He's learned some, you know, and got some very good skills behind him. And let's see, let's do the share thing. Okay, it's not showing up. Okay. That's because I've got to open the folder. I got 3 folders to open, and I didn't open them because I'm trying something new. I'm trying not to open the folders until we want to look at them, so that they don't take up so much space on the desktop. But let me open up the folder and we'll go through that stuff. But you know, I mean, it's interesting. You know, he's very representational in many ways. Kind of, you know, he kind of reminds me of a couple of different painters. You know, Salvador Dali obviously being one. But, okay, you're going to open for me or what? There we go. You know, because of sort of the surrealist aspect of his work, you know, but at the same time, he reminds me of, you know, different painters like Richard Schmid, you know, Dan Green, you know, it seems to be, you know, there's a lot of influences. Certainly Caravaggio, they showed him, you know, in a photograph of him standing in front of one of Caravaggio's paintings. And That was not his painting. That was Caravaggio's painting. So let's try it now. Yes, this. But you know, I mean, it's, you know, it's impressive work. You know, it's well done. Like I said, you know, technically, you know, painted very well, and you know, when you look at this, you know, the composition. You know, it's the same figure. He sort of repeated it and blended, you know, one figure into another. So there's some kind of sense of movement. And obviously, you know, a little bit of mystery because there's all these different elements kind of floating around. You know, you have a...
What's the meaning? What's the meaning of this?
Now, don't ask me, you know. I'm
asking you, you're the expert.
Well, no, I mean, you know. I mean, you know, it means whatever it means to you, okay? You know, I'm not going to try to interpret his work. You know, and there's aspects of it that you kind of look at and scratch your head. It's like he does this thing repeatedly. Now, he didn't do it in this one, you know, but I'll point it out when I come across it. Where it's kind of like he's deconstructing the figure, like in this particular case, where the figure seems to be sort of like coming apart, you know. Like here, her shoulder and this guy's hat and stuff, you know, it's like it's flaking off or, you know, breaking up. You know, he also tends to, you know, it's like the skin, you know, in areas is either scarred or it's almost like it's skin transitioning into wood or marble or something, you know, some other element. You know, personally, yeah, I know that's kind of a surrealist, you know, thing, but it's something that he does often, and I'm not quite sure why. I don't know what like Naomi, I don't quite get the meaning of that.
I don't get it.
Yeah, but that's okay.
I actually am loving this. I haven't seen this artist before, and I really like the combination of realism and the surrealistic feel.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah. And I mean, you know,
very interesting.
Yeah, like this painting. Okay. If you look at the different elements, I mean, he can certainly handle, you know, natural elements like skies and backgrounds, you know, land masses and forms, objects, figures, animals, drapery. You know, there's a lot of skill in each one of those. And, you know, I'm going to blow this up a little bit. Hopefully it won't get too pixelated. But, you know, that's a very nicely painted cat, you know, for a Siamese cat, you know, and the wood on the boat, and you see how, you know, it's a wooden, it's what we call a shiplapped formed boat. It's, you know, out of wooden planks, and they're actually, these are not nails. These are actually like wooden pins or dowels that are put through, you know, to the frame of the boat, you know, to shape it around the frame. So, you know, I mean, he does his research, you know, he really looks at things very carefully, you know, figures it out. You know, the same thing, you know, this is for Bernice. Look at the folds in this, Bernice. Are you with us, Bernice?
There was one shirt in one of the paintings that had so many wrinkles. I thought that must be torture to paint.
Well, and that's another thing, you know, I mean, he does fabric, you know, really well, actually. And I mean, very well. I mean, it's,
okay, so what's the meaning here?
Again, I don't know. Don't ask me.
Anybody have a meaning?
I don't see where you really need a meaning. Why can't you not just enjoy the painting?
Yeah.
No, he's trying to tell us something.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think he's telling.
Don't rock your boat. He's telling you not to rock your boat.
Don't rock the boat. Yeah, well.
No, she's dreaming. She's dreaming.
Yeah. Yeah, the other thing
She
I want
wants to break out of her life.
Well, see, there's a meaning for you. Okay. But
I think they trigger your own psychology
Right.
where you imagine the meaning.
yeah,
Like
Yeah, I
the
mean,
people who are coming apart, you know, talking to each other.
that's what I keep saying, you know, is that, you know, you will look at this image and you will kind of create your own story. You know, it
Stop
will.
the world. I want to get off.
There we go. You know, or maybe she's preparing for the next flood. Who knows?
No.
But you know, I mean, again, look at how he handled the figure and the flesh tones. You know, really nicely painted. Again, you know, very, very competent artist. You know, handled all that very, very nicely. Yeah, and he's got some, you know, some really beautiful work. And you can kind of see his classical influence. You know, we were talking about underpainting, and all of these figures, you know, this whole painting was built on an underpainting because he works in you know, very much so that Renaissance classical style. And that's, you know, how he begins to get all the form and the depth, you know, in the figures and the different objects that he's painted. So,
This is strange to me.
it is, Naomi, and it's okay.
It's okay.
It can be strange. It doesn't have to not be. You know, look, artists, you know, when you think of artists, you think of strange, you know? I mean,
No, I don't. I don't.
you know, artists are the most normal people you've ever met in your life, right? No.
I know what it is, but I don't want to say it.
No. No, artists are, you know, we perceive the world a little bit differently than most people. Okay?
Sensitive.
Yeah, can be. Could be. I've met a lot of artists who are rather insensitive.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you know, and that's on purpose, though. But again, you know, it's about, you know, it's your view of the world. Okay? Again, you know, you look at this painting, you know, again, look at the composition, look at the range of value, look at how he, you know, handled, you know, all these different materials and things like that. You know, very competent painter, you know, very good.
What's that apple doing up? What is that?
It's floating.
For an apple that's floating?
Yes. Well, I mean, in almost every one of his paintings, he's got a few things floating around.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's,
Maybe
you know,
gravity.
gravity.
Maybe that means she's losing her apple.
Yeah, gravity does not, you know, doesn't quite work the same way for him that it does for the rest of the universe. You know, I mean, there's a lot of stuff floating around. So maybe that's a statement all in itself, you know. But again, you know, beautifully done. Look at the transition of the fabric, you know, from being sort of opaque and how it just sort of blends and fades into, you know, the background. So, you know, you get this kind of, you know, ghosted effect, you know, of are they really there, or is this just sort of a, you know, an image that I'm remembering in my mind, or, you know,
I wish he could tell us.
well, I wish he could too. You know, we'll have to call him up one day and have
Yes.
a chat with him. Of course, I think he'd have to learn how to speak either Portuguese or Spanish. You know.
Oh, he's
from
Spanish?
Argentina. Speaks Spanish.
Argentina?
Yes.
Okay.
From Buenos Aires.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. You know, again, you know, really lovely painted. There's a lot of rocks floating around, you know, clocks.
He is on Facebook.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's where I came across his work.
And he's in Google too.
Yeah. Yeah, and actually, you know, he and I have kind of exchanged comments, you know, back and forth a few times. But yeah, he's got, you know, some really beautiful work.
Is he married?
No, I don't
say.
know. Okay.
Are you interested?
No, I'm saying I look at him that this man is not married.
I don't know. You know, I don't know anything about his personal life. Okay.
I don't know how you can tell that from the paintings.
Yeah, I don't either, but okay. And I don't know that that's particularly relevant, but
Oh,
yeah.
he's interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
There's the clock again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, time.
Yes,
So
well,
time.
he uses clocks. He, a lot of floating things, animals. She's got a small key, actually the key to the clock, to wind the clock. It uses this pattern, this fabric pattern back here quite a bit as well. That's something that I've seen in several of his paintings.
That means that girl can control your time.
Maybe.
What about time?
This is actually one of my favorite paintings of his.
It is beautiful.
Yeah, it's really lovely the way it's painted. And when you start really looking at it, the guitar sort of, it's not really coming apart. It's kind of transitioning, from, a piece of wood into this guitar, just like it seems like her leg, is turning from wood into flesh, right? But the way he managed, the actual rendering of the faces and the forms, very, very nicely done stuff. A little more classical looking.
Is that him?
I don't think so.
I think that's him.
No, it doesn't really look like him. Yeah.
No?
No. Yeah, we saw pictures of him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Another dark Hispanic looking guy, but yeah, doesn't look like him.
Well, Mediterranean looking, I would say.
Okay.
He could look Italian too.
Could be. Yeah. Greek, anything. South American.
Yeah. Mediterranean to me. Something's wrong here. Something is disturbing me.
Okay.
No, it's fine.
Yeah. Well, she is a bit contorted. She does not look like she's laying there comfortably. Right?
No, it doesn't look like it's her body. No?
It doesn't look like it's her body?
No, it doesn't look like a normal body.
Yeah. Well, yeah, like I said, it's a little contorted, it's like, yeah, it looks painful. It doesn't look like she's relaxing, having a good time.
But the sheet looks good. Look at that sheet.
Yeah. Unlike this guy, who looks very relaxed, sitting there with his dog. Of course,
Well, what is he sitting on?
nothing. He's floating. He's just kind of floating there. There's no chair. So. Yeah, same thing.
Yeah.
So, is he inside? Is he outside? Is that the sky, or is that just a wall painted with clouds? And then why is the furniture disappearing? It goes out to the edges. So
The glass is floating.
yeah, yep, yes,
Yeah.
And not only
Busy
that,
with the floating.
not only that, it looks like he's spilling either some good scotch or bourbon, in there. What a that would be a terrible waste. So okay, that ace of hearts comes up a lot for him too. That's in a lot of his paintings. I'm not quite sure what the symbolism between the ace of hearts is all about, but okay. She's kind of having a tea party and levitating there. Notice she's not sitting on the fabric. She's up above it.
Oh.
Okay. I wish my cup of tea made me feel that way in the morning. Yeah, this is another one of his pieces I really like.
Mm. Now this I really don't get.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think you have to.
I don't have to.
No, no, I don't. I don't think that's really the point. You know, is that you have to get everything. You know,
There's
there's
meaning here. He must
well,
have meaning.
well, there is. You know, I mean, he has his meaning, and you know, kind of the thing with surrealism, like Salvador Dali. You know, Salvador Dali's work wasn't something that you could easily interpret that everybody would agree on. It's like everybody.
That's, could
Everybody.
you do that? Could you do a lecture on Salvador Dali?
Sure.
Yeah, because he's famous, and I would like to see you give a lecture on his paintings. That would be interesting. You keep mentioning him,
Mhm.
and
Well,
that would be good.
if we talk about Dali, then we have to look at Magritte, and we have to look at, you know, a lot of the other surrealists in that movement as well.
Yeah, that would be good.
So,
That would be good because, I mean, I was never exposed to art. I didn't get involved in art for a long time, but one of the artists I was always attracted to was Dali.
okay.
He was one of the ones I first found really interesting.
Okay.
And I,
Well, we're lucky we have Charles, so Charles is going to help us.
I agree that so many of these paintings are very reminiscent of Dali. I mean, you the influence it's fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. He doesn't paint the way that Dali paints. You know,
No.
in a way, as a technician, he's a lot more technically proficient than Dali was.
He's much better than Dali.
Yeah.
Well, I'm saying
He's good.
technically, yes.
Yeah.
You know, as far as, you know, concept, originality, stuff like that, yeah, maybe not so much. But again, you know, it's like you can't be a painter today, living in the 21st century, and not be influenced by everybody else who's come before, you know. And in fact, we just saw a video the other day about a young man who was doing plein air painting in New York City, you know, in the park. And an artist comes along, an older artist comes along, and, you know, I think he genuinely meant well, you know, and he's trying to encourage him to try to find his, you know, to go do his own thing, you know, find something new, you know, interpret it his own way rather than trying to emulate the Impressionist, right? And that, you know, really opens up kind of a whole bag of worms about what should you do as an artist, you know, and the fact is you're going to make the work that you enjoy and that you enjoy making. And regardless of how hard you try to emulate someone else, you know, you're not going to do their work. You're going to end up doing your own. Because what we are, you know, as individuals and people is we're a collection of influences. You know, it's everything that we've seen, everything that we've experienced, everything that's happened to us in our life comes out up there, you know, on that canvas, you know, or on that piece of paper, or, you know, whatever we're working in, you know, the piece of clay. And so, you know, we're gonna be a blend, you know, but that's what will make our work unique is, you know, how do we combine, you know, influences of Caravaggio, Dali, you know, contemporary painters like, you know, Dan Green and Schmid and folks like that, you know, to create our own work.
And then,
So, you know, this thing about coming up with something that's absolutely new and original, well, you know, there's nothing particularly original about, you know, taking a brush or, you know, even a rag or something and applying paint to a canvas, right? You know, or, you know, a wall or anything else, you know, that's been done for the last 50,000 years.
now, Charles,
mhm.
What about you see the arm of the leg, and I see the same design in others painting.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's like it's wood grain or something, and yeah, I don't know. Maybe he's trying to, say something like, "We're all like Pinocchio. We're all trying to become real boys and girls."
Mhm.
Who knows? I mean, you can interpret it any you want. Yeah, it gets back to that thing. You're gonna see and read into it. Whatever you want to. I mean, different people are gonna key in on different things. Okay. So I'm going to speed up a little bit so we can get on to the next thing. But again, very, very efficient, very proficient painter. Very, very competent about, composition, design, use of value, use of color, all the technical aspects of painting. Very good, very good to look at. So now this is the painting. And I wanted to kind of talk about this one in particular for a little bit, okay? Because when we went back and we looked in the video, we saw this painting about 4 times, right? And each time well, not each time, we saw about 3 different formats of this very same painting. We saw it in this vertical format, we saw it in a square format, and we saw it in kind of a more elongated landscape format. And so he painted this painting at least 3 times. And he didn't change the central figure and everything else. He just expanded, the background around it for some reason. But like I said, I saw at least 3 different versions of this, very same painting. So, and I actually kind of like the square format better than this one. This one feels a little confined. So, yeah, we saw this as well.
This is weird.
Yes, Naomi, it is weird. It's okay. It's fine. That's my job. I'm supposed to introduce you to weird stuff.
Well, no, that's why I'm enjoying it. Oh, absolutely. This is very enjoyable.
Mm-hmm. Now, this is one I wanted to point out too. I mean, I painted, some really complicated fabric before. Now talking about labor intensive and tedious, there's a lot of work in there. I mean, there's just a lot of work in there. Beautifully painted, really lovely. I wish Bernice were, communicative with us. Bernice.
She's quiet today.
Are you? Yeah, I think she's off taking a nap or doing something. She's with us, but she's not. So we'll just talk bad about her while she's away.
You can even see the threads hanging from that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Just wow.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, the frayed kind of thread and fabric. Yeah, I mean, it's beautifully painted. It really is. It's marvelous stuff. Really nice. So, she is the tree, right? So, but yeah, I mean, and we could keep going. I mean, there's lots and lots of stuff here. Not so thrilling. Yeah, it's not bad. Pretty good.
I wonder what he gets for these paintings.
I don't know. Yeah, I really don't.
I'm curious.
Yeah, I don't know what his price point is, but
yeah,
I would imagine he'd have to get fairly well paid for them because they tend to be big, and they tend to be really, really complicated. Now, okay, so we've looked at his stuff. Okay, and we'll stop this.
Wow, that
Hmm?
that last one had so much in it.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, that's that's the point. It's kind of where I kind of come down with my opinion about his work. You know, I mean, he's really not all that young. You know, he's in his later 30s now, and he's maturing as an artist. And it seems like he's spent an awful lot of time, you know, working on the technical aspects of his art. Okay. I guess there are some pieces that I really like and kind of feel some kind of emotional connection to, but a lot of them I don't. You know, and again, you know, that gets back to this aspect of, well, different strokes for different folks. You know, it's like some people like certain things, other people not so much. So, but you know, I admire his technical ability. All right, I guess that's kind of where I would read it. You know, he's a very good painter. You know, he's certainly somebody to look at if you're trying to improve your drawing and painting skills and things like that. You know, you can learn a lot by looking at his work.
And
Yeah. And, you know, if you want to go off and be a hippy dippy artist, you know, and do weird things with, you know, parts of the world kind of floating and dissolving into each other, hey, pick up that trick too. That's fine. You know, it's all fair, right? So, all right. So we're going to look at one more video. Are we? Well, no, it's 11:43.
no, it's only 10 minutes.
Yeah, I know. Well, and that's about what this is. This, I think, you see, how long is this? No, this is 26 minutes. Yeah, that's going to drag us way over into lunch. So we're not going to do that. We'll save that for another day. It's the watercolor piece. All right.
Yay.
But, okay, but.
Oh, Bernice is back.
Hey, Bernice.
I'm sorry. I was on. I had a phone call that I had to answer.
Ah.
Oh.
But I was watching though.
Okay. Well, we were talking bad about you.
Huh?
We were talking bad about you.
Oh no.
Yeah.
You know you don't know I read lips right.
Well, you know, you can read all my lips, you know, you want, but you know, I actually showed a couple things and wanted to show you some of this guy's work.
Well, I saw it.
Yeah,
I didn't know you were saying, and I saw, you know, some of I saw the folds and the way he did the feet and how one thing melted into the other and how the thing was kind of non-realistic, but you know, I even heard someone say, how much does he charge? I knew exactly how much he charged.
Okay.
And the answer is a lot.
Okay, well, you got a little bit out of that then. Okay, yeah, because
I just couldn't hear, but I could see the whole thing.
Yeah, because I wanted you to, you know, definitely kind of look at, you know, some of the work that he was doing, particularly with painting fabrics, you know, and folds, because that's something that you've been interested in doing for a while.
Yes, it really is.
Yeah. So, all right. So I'm going to show you this.
Can I pull the artist up?
Sure.
What's his name?
Hernan, Hernan, Javier.
Hernan, okay.
Yeah, Javier. And then Munoz, Munoz. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So yeah, you can look him up. But right now we're going to look at this other guy. Okay. Or well, it could be a woman. Not really sure. Yeah, Odile Morsus, or yeah, Morsu, something like that. If you want to know how to spell that name, it's Odelle.
O-D-E.
And then Morshus. Okay? And that's who we're looking at now. Now, this is a much more contemporary painter. Okay. Well, do I want to say much? Well, let's say they have more of a modernist style, okay? Because Munoz certainly is contemporary, probably more contemporary than this person because probably younger. All right, so can everybody see? It looks like a very kind of light canvas with some washy sort of color on it, and then just barely kind of make out a ghosted figure in there, right?
Yeah, ghostly girl.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And this is very kind of atypical of this artist's work. You know, they tend to be kind of large canvases. They have figures, very simplified, you know, beautifully drawn, very kind of accurate, but, you know, very minimalized, you know, in many ways. And it's interesting, you know, when you look at the work and how the figures sort of overlap and kind of interact with each other, you know, because there's all these different layers. And it's kind of a, you know, it's painting, but it's kind of like a drawing as well.
How do you spell his last name again?
Okay, let's see.
Last name.
Yeah, let's see. Can I get, I don't think, yeah, let me go back to the folder. Here, I'll tell you at the end, okay?
Okay.
Yeah, let's get through some of the work and then I'll share that. Okay. So again, you know, nice compositions, you know, here you're working on a darker background. And so he's using line as an element, but, you know, he's using it as a light value. See, so it goes both ways, you know, dark outline, light outline. So, you know, he's being very, very conscientious about, you know, how he uses line, color, value, where things sort of intersect and overlap. But I like.
What'd you say? This is modern? What would you call this?
Yeah,
Modern?
yeah, it's, yeah, very modern, very contemporary figurative art. You know, certainly figurative. You know, you would have to kind of say it's representational in the sense that you recognize that they're figures, right? You know, but it's kind of that back and forth, you know, between abstraction and, you know, realism.
It's very beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, you know, the approach to this opens up a lot of possibilities, you know, to use color, to use line, to use, you know, changes in value. Now,
These are oil?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure whether they're oil or acrylic. I wasn't really able to find out much about, you know, this particular artist. I just found the work. Now,
And
this
I was wondering if the outlines were painted on or scratched in.
I don't know. You know, I would guess because they're kind of a lighter, you know, they go back and forth between light and dark. I would say that probably painted on. You know, I would say probably started off with a drawing first and then built up some tones and loose colors and values and then went back in and restated the drawing. If I had to make a guess, he or she. I thought this was an interesting piece. Now, this is a sculptural piece. You know, it's a piece of flat steel that's been folded and bent and cut, you know, in silhouettes. So it's sculptural. Yeah, it's the same angle. But again, you know, it's an interesting approach to doing, you know, figurative art. You know, it's got a human element in it, and yet, you know, at the same time, it definitely doesn't look like a Renaissance painting. So.
Yeah, his paintings are expensive.
Okay. Is it a he or do we know? Odelay?
I don't know yet. Let me see.
Yeah, I haven't been able to, like I said, I looked, I didn't find a lot about the artist in particular. You know, I was able to find some of the work. I wasn't able to find a lot about, you know, who they were or, you know, what their background was. I'm interested, you know, I mean, I'd like to find out more about them. Because it's really nice work, you know, really well done. The other thing you can't find online is many really high resolution images. You know, most of the images for this artist are really pretty low resolution. And so, you know, they come out to be these little tiny postage stamp type images, and you got to blow them up. And I'm sure that, you know, if we could get a higher res image, you know, you could probably get a lot more out of their process and, you know, maybe how they approached the painting. You know, this almost looks Western, you know, sort of in feel, you know, because of the writers.
He is in New Zealand.
Ah, okay.
He's on Facebook.
How do you spell his last name?
M is in Michael, Orshus.
Orshus.
Yes.
I like him. I like this.
Yeah, I thought you might, you know.
Yeah. I like them both. Today was very fascinating. I want you to know. Very, very out of my world.
Yeah, we get out of our comfort zone a little bit today.
This is wonderful.
Well,
I like this art also, but I love the last artist.
Yeah,
he was, you know, something I would stare at for hours. But this is interesting.
It's very interesting. We have to thank Charles for finding all of this, because we would never find this.
I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. You know, but again, you know, it's different artists, and they have different approaches and different, you know, different visions about, you know, how they want to express, you know, sort of their interpretation of the world around them. Yeah. I mean, you know, if you look at this piece, you know, in many ways it's sort of simple, but at the same time, you know, you could look at this for hours, you know, the different figures, you know, and what they're doing and how they're interacting. You know, it's really, you know, it's an interesting approach. I mean, I'll just kind of leave it at that. But, you know, technically, it's very well done. You know, they're, you know, very competent draftsmen. And they have a pretty clear vision of, you know, how they want to approach, you know, creating their own art. And you don't see a lot of, you know, people out there who are doing something similar to this particular individual. You know, it's something that's sort of unique to them. And that's, you know, that's kind of the struggle. It's like, you know, how do you make art? How do you make it your own? You know, and, you know, it may look very different than, you know, anything else out there, or it may look a lot like everything else, and that's okay.
It's like ink drawings over a painted surface.
Kind of, yeah. There's kind of a minimalist aspect to it that's really kind of nice, because it's, you know, it doesn't get caught up so much in technique, you know, as much as it is, you know, just sort of the composition and the movement, you know, of the piece. So, you know, so that's what I have for you guys today.
Oh, it was great.
Okay. And,
yeah, good session. Very good session.
It was very good.
Yeah,
loved it.
Yeah, hopefully you looked at, you know, kind of a wide enough variety of work that it will maybe inspire you to play with.
Well, it made me feel young.
Did it make you feel young?
I'm an old lady, and this made me feel young looking at all of this.
Good. See, I hadn't counted on that, and if it did that, you know, write me a review.
I will. because it was excellent.
Yeah, I could use that one, Made me
Well,
feel
you're doing a great job zooming. You really are.
okay. Anyway,
See you later.
yes, we will be back tomorrow at 2:00.
At 2.
Send me some work. I don't really have a lot to talk about tomorrow, but I'd love to see what you guys are doing. Even if you're kind of just messing around with ideas, thumbnails, things like that. It'd give you kind of an opportunity to, show some things, talk about it, get some other ideas, some feedback and stuff. Okay.
Very good.
All right. Well,
See
stay
y'all.
safe till then.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye, everybody.